So what is the new model for learning, and how does it really impact schools and the environment today?
Well, going back to the story, map, and landscape kind of frame, I created what I call design principles, or the new map. And while the current story is grounded in prescription and memory, the new learning model is grounded in purpose and meaning. It's grounded in inquiry and exploration, not compliance and not acquisition. It's grounded in personalization and collaboration, not uniformity and not competition. It's grounded in challenge and questions and curiosity and not certainty and not answers and not threat. And sort of picking up on a conversation we had before, it's grounded in joy and not fear. So you look at the kind of learning environment that most kids are immersed in. It's all about memory, it's all about prescription, it's all about one size fits all, it's all about competition, it's all about winning, it's all about getting a grade point average, sometimes extended to 3 or 4 decimal points, which doesn't mean anything. It's not about individual engagement. It's not about the child's purpose in learning. It's not about the meaning that is derived from learning. It's not about collaboration. So it's a fundamental new design. And that translates then into taking those principles and saying, well, what does the actual landscape look like? And we might talk about that later on as well, but when I look at schooling in terms of sort of the biggies of curriculum and instruction and assessment and time structures, the new model is fundamentally different from a prescribed curriculum that everyone, quote unquote, takes, from individual subjects that everyone, quote unquote, takes, to a competency-driven, inquiry-based, learner-centered, problem-centered orientation, where instruction is co-created with learner and teacher. Teacher is facilitator, and where assessment is all about performance and demonstrations and showing evidence of how it is that you really understand and can do something. And that it's grounded in living systems theory. I just want to talk a little bit about that. It may sound very esoteric, but I do want to just talk about that, because it is a frame. I mean, in addition to the construct of new story, new map, and new landscape, part of the map and part of the new story is based on 6 domains of living systems that I have translated from natural ecosystems into what does it mean for human systems. And they are identity, system information, system relationships, system patterns, processes, and structures. So when I think of the design of generative learning environments for leaders to be mindful of and to be very intentional about, it's to take each one of those 6 things and say, what does that mean in terms of creating conditions by design to make it more likely? Because it's never about mandate. I mean, we somehow think we can mandate, punish, perturb, cajole people into greatness. You know, it just doesn't work. You can invite them, and you can mandate very short-term things. I think we're learning a lot about motivation to say, you know, external motivation works for very short-term things. But if you want if you want things that matter, if you want to engage people at their highest sense of purpose, you could pay them as much as you want. They'll do it anyway. They'll do it even if you don't pay them. So we have to sort of change that thing because we're so short-term. But I've sort of gotten myself off here. But in terms of looking at these 6, what about system identity? And when we think about that, is what is the highest purpose that the organization wants to proclaim about itself? That's the vision. And so identity is all about the self, both self of the individual and the self of the organization. What are we really here to do? Then the information. What information is essential that we gather, that we keep, that we share, that we generate? And it's information about our purpose. See, a lot of people lose sight of that. They gather anything. They gather everything. They gather data, and it's not just about stuff. It's only about the stuff that really matters. It's about are we gathering metrics on our fundamental purpose so that we can see if we're sort of moving the needle. And then it's about relationships, because the relationships in a system are the system's neural network. Are we connected? Are we collaborating? What's the quality, intensity, resilience of our connectedness. The patterns in a living system, the pattern is a network. That is true in any ecosystem. It's a network. That is not typical. In a mechanical system, there are no networks. There are only parts. In a living system, there are no parts. And that's a really fundamental difference, because in school, there are departments. There are subjects. You take one subject and you never have to take it again. There are everything is separate, everything is siloed, everything, even classrooms, I mean, whether you call them egg crates, whether they look like factories, whatever you look like prison, whatever the metaphor is, that is not an ecosystem. That's parts and bits. So the pattern of a living system is a network. How is the corporation? How is the school? A living, dynamic innovation network. And then when you get your identity and you know how you're gathering information about your intended purpose, when your relationships and connections are strong and deep, when you are, in fact, continuing to nurture a network, then your structures and processes are more derived phenomenon. You say, well, then what kinds of systems do we need to get the work done? What kinds of processes will get the work done? Because now we've identified the work, we've identified the information that we need, we know the kinds of relationships that we want to develop, what kinds of processes do we need, and what kinds of structures do we need. And they are adaptive, they're flexible, and they're temporary. The reverse is typically true in the current state. We start with the processes and the structures, we calcify them, we put them in stone, we never change them.